Sheba and Solomon butt naked in bed. Yes, that was a part of Magi chapter 226. So I definitely gotta say this chapter falls in the category yet again of what I feel. For the most part, there's a couple things going on and there's slight progression in there, but definitely Shinobu was just like pulling the sled at a very slow speed because this chapter, it showed some progression, and yes, it was necessary to see when Solomon would ultimately accept his role as king, as we knew he would eventually, you know, succumb to the peer pressure, I guess you would say. But aside from that and a couple other things, it definitely felt like Shinobu, like, yeah, now you're starting to really, you know, drag on with this arc, and not even starting, it's been for a while now. We'll get like a good moment here or there, or feel like, you know, we got some progression, and then it's in the midst of like a bunch of other different things, and that's mainly her trying to do different things as far as like, she wants to show relationships more, which I can respect that, because I really always feel like different shonen manga miss out on opportunities to do things like that. Like, you know, we argue for years and years, Naruhina, Narusaku, all sorts of shit, but she gave you a clear-cut winner, and she's kind of going into the relationship, kind of giving us the ins and outs of their relationship, and seeing them even in the most simplest of times when they're just butt naked in bed chilling. So I guess in a sense I like that part of it, but just it feels as though there's just so much content that just feels kind of like unnecessary. Like, we've seen for time and time again that Solomon just dreads becoming what his father is, you know, this dictator king and whatnot. And this chapter, a big chunk of it was him once again dreading that, but ultimately, I guess the big portion of it that I did like and was good is he finally said, you know what? If it takes a king to put everything in store and do everything the way it needs to be done, then fine, I'll accept it. And I felt kind of bad for the character, to be honest with you, because I would hate for somebody or a group of people, just for the sake of them, for me to have to do something that I really dread, or one of my worst fears, you know, comes out of me having to satisfy the urge that these people need and whatnot. So definitely I felt kind of bad for Solomon in that situation, and ultimately I wouldn't be surprised if, while he's trying to do this for the better of the world, maybe it'll backfire. Maybe this will really corrupt him because it's something he just didn't want to do. Now, obviously, not the entire thing is, like, you know, bad for him, because mainly it's just that he doesn't want to become like his father. Wearing a crown isn't what bothers him. Becoming his father and just ruling over with an iron fist and segregating and whatnot is what scares him. So it could come out bad, it could come out good, but we know at the very least that Solomon will become a legend. Now, the beginning of the flashback, it's funny how Shinobu kind of retcons her own art, because we get the flashback of Solomon and Sheba when they were younger, and I think she realized that she made Solomon's design look very similar when he was 17 to what he is now when I guess he's 22. So she kind of like drew him younger looking than he really actually looked when he was 17 when we first seen him. He looked like he was like maybe 12 or 13 or something, so I found that a little strange or whatnot, and ultimately it just felt like it was pushing forward, like, you know, typical friendship stuff, like, oh, I just really wanted friends, that's why I mainly left. And I was like, oh, so you left your father because of that? I thought you left because of, you know, mainly all the fucked up shit he was doing. But, and I guess also, didn't he have friends already? He had Ugo, he had Arba, even though they were kind of forced to be friends with him, mainly Arba. Ugo he kind of made himself, but I was just kind of like, so and it's interesting how even in our world now, some of the same problems that plague Yamataran plague us now. Like, you have all the species fighting amongst each other. No, we're the supreme species, we should be his disciples, and they're all fighting left and right. And that just really shows at the end of the day, anything with human intelligence is going to clash within each other regardless of what, and you just see them all going. But then again, that was something that I felt the last chapter addressed as well, with just people fighting left and right. But I guess as the role approached closer, we were getting a little bit more of a glance at it. So it was like necessary but unnecessary in a way. It was just like giving, I guess, some exposition as to really how these people are feeling about where the world is heading. Now, one of the things I wanted to note is that all of his people there, Arba, Ugo, all of them were like, you know, you accept this role, and regardless of what, if you stray, we will come after you, and even if it costs us our lives, we will do it. And it really got me thinking, what if the promise that all of them made, whoever Gyokuen is, whether she's there, whether she's the baby in the belly, because a lot of people are predicting that that's not Aladdin, maybe that's Gyokuen inside of Sheba's belly. What if the one person that actually keeps up with that promise is Gyokuen? What if all this time that we've seen all these little flashbacks of Solomon, what about if he really wasn't just this great and good person? What about if the reason why that person betrayed him, it wasn't that they were the bad ones? What if they were keeping up with the promise that Solomon strayed, so they were going to take him down, or they felt Solomon strayed? There's a possibility there. We got more advancement talk talk regarding the Rook and just kind of how everyone has it. Every living being has Rook within it. And I think that was one of the things that helped to calm Solomon's mind down, seeing that everyone is equal. At the end of the day, every species possible, you know, humans, everybody has Rook inside of them. So I think that, you know, how last chapter he was kind of like trying to figure a way, like, how can I help Solomon? How can I ease his mind? That's what it took to ease his mind. It was simply him doing something scientifically accidentally led to him calming Solomon's mind down a little bit, realizing that, oh shit, you know, everyone really is equal. So even if I put on this crown and I become a leader, everyone's still going to be equal. Although it really got me curious, because the way he was describing it, in order to tap into this, you know, layer, because there's like 3 different layers, to get to the Rook layer, you have to use this power that is like far beyond what David and Solomon can muster. Only Eli can do that. So does Solomon find a way to tap into Eli, and that's how he creates the Magi? Because we know that pretty much the only people that can reach this Rook power are Magi in our current world. So Solomon finds some way, we can assume that he finds a way to tap into either Eli's power or a greater power beyond anything that they can perceive, to give it to his Magi, because I doubt like Arba and Ugo can tap into this incredible power that even Solomon and David can't. So he probably finds a way to give it to them using this Solomon's wisdom, whatever it may be. We do see that gate looking thing that looks like Solomon's wisdom at the end. Maybe that's what the dragon suggested or something, or maybe it's something that Ugo comes up with later on, because at the end of the chapter it did say they couldn't comprehend what Rook was. They barely just started to understand it now. So I'm definitely assuming that he either will tap into Eli's power, he'll find a way to sap it, to give it to himself and his Magi, or something along the lines of that, because they did say it takes a great deal of power. And Arba and Ugo ain't mustering that shit up, so something is going to happen to the point where people like Aladdin later on, and all these people can muster up the strength to get to the Rook. Or maybe it's a different strategy. Maybe they don't necessarily need all that power to get to the Rook. Maybe there's a different way, and he'll find out and use that to have his selected Magi. Because if you notice, the Magi just keep on coming back. Like, basically, the Magi are probably the same people over and over, and that's that same power. That's why they keep on being reincarnated and whatnot. So maybe he finds one simple solution of recycle. But overall, aside from him accepting his position and getting a little bit more of information regarding the Rook, I definitely felt like this chapter feels once again like she's kind of slowing things down. It's like, oh, next chapter, the night before the battle. So Chernobyl is definitely giving us a lot of information. Some of it feels a little bit unnecessary. Some of it is good. Like, again, I said, Solomon accepting his position, finally getting that great progression there, and learning a little bit more about the Rook and how you have to, it's a complicated way, and that's why normal people can't access the Rook, or normal magicians for that matter. It takes only these people that are Magi, so we got to learn how they can actually access it, so we can understand how Aladdin and these people can do it. So overall with this chapter, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Some good information and progression, but definitely a lot of useless, somewhat feeling filler material in there, and hopefully, you know, she kind of like can get to the point real soon, because while I'm enjoying Almataron, there are bits like within this chapter again that I just feel like it's feeling too shoujo romancy, and I want less of that and more giving me of that story, and, you know, just ultimately everything that's going to happen. Like, I'm still waiting. Who's Gyokuen? Is that Aladdin in the belly, or is that Gyokuen? So there's a lot of different answers that I'm waiting for, and hopefully the next few chapters, 2 or 3 chapters, we can finally get to the final battle with Elder David. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think of this chapter? How did you feel about Solomon? Again, I understand that this was a great fear that he had, but it felt like a lot of these chapters were just constantly drilling it into our heads. Solomon is scared. He doesn't want to take this role. He's frightened. And I would have liked less of that and more of, okay, we understand he's frightened of this, but he has to do it. And this chapter, it just drilled too much like Solomon's worst nightmare is coming true. And it could be a good thing. It could be that, you know, he ultimately overcomes it, or it could be a bad thing, and this could be what makes him fall into depravity. What do you think about that scene with them just butt naked in bed chilling? Like, I found that like the probably most funniest scene in there, and he's like, hey, you're getting fat eating too much of that food. That was pretty, like, just to see them in their natural habitat just chilling. And just overall thoughts of the chapter. But that's all I have for this review. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.